Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Purple and Gold for Days and the Loading the Box debut. Crossing over here as we get set for Super Bowl Sunday. I got my guys Will and Jordan in the back room here. We're just going to let a couple people get in, and we're going to introduce you guys to Loading the Box. Load the box, not loading. Load the box. Got to get it right. I put it up in the chat, and I've got the link pinned, so if you could do me a solid, subscribe to my boys Will and Jordan as we get into it. Let's get them in. Let's waste no more time. Let's put this one here. Let's put this one here. We got, first off, let me move myself down here. We got Jordan in the upper left-hand corner this way, and we got Will this way. Will, Jordan, how are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing great, man. Thanks for having us, and I'm glad we can make this happen.
Absolutely. I'm gonna kill the music here. Jordan, how you doing this evening? How's that little one treating you tonight?
She's asleep, so I'm gonna have to put the mic real close to my face to make sure that I don't wake her up. That's just, that's my East Coast, not East Coast, but Eastern time zone issues, right?
There you go.
9 o'clock, so it's bedtime down here. But
just to introduce you guys to the audience here, I saw you guys on your channel with Dustin Baker last week. Checked out the show, checked out some of you guys. You know what? I'm gonna have these guys on. And scheduling quirks, this, that, and the third, but it's actually worked out pretty good because this is the Thursday night right before the Super Bowl, so we can talk about that along with a few Vikings topics here. But just, it's kind of one of those paid forward type things. Rap and Dave and Tyler and Darren from Vikings First and SKOL, as well as many other YouTube GG boys, Vikings Uncensored with Rhino and Brunswick. They all helped me out get to where I got. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to help these guys and they can help us. See, we are a community of Vikings content creators. We don't compete with each other like some other teams' channels do. The old phrase, when one of us wins, we all wins. But how I start this out is we say hello to the people who have shown up and put something in the chats already. We got my guy T-Bass. I'm a Vikings fan, not a JJ stan. I want what's best for the future. We might touch on that. Shout out to I Want to Mock Bob. What's going on, Bob? We got my SKOL brother, SKOL Mafia, in the building. What is going on? It is what it is. If they trade JJ, Quaser better get the best deal possible. Now, that I'll agree with. I don't like the idea of trading him, but we'll talk about that here tonight. But with that said, he's not going anywhere. Yes, I totally agree. Let's see who else we got here. We got SKOL for Life Barber 1975. What's going on, Barber? Good to see you as well as always. We got my guy Ryan. What's going on? Thanks for joining. We got Norsefius in the building. Norsefius is your guy. You see this? You see that thing right there? That nice flag with my logo. Norsefius made that for me. He also made one for Rap. So when you guys get to that point, and you say, hey, we'd like a couple of flags with our logos on it, Norsefius is the guy that'll get you the hookup.
That's such a good name for like Norsefius. A Vikings related, and then the profile picture with the red pill, blue pill, that is that
Norsefius, Norsefius. There you go.
Primo.
We got my guy Kyle in the building. What's going on, Kyle? Good to see you. I'm working Super Bowl all week. Oh, are you? I hope you're getting paid overtime, Kyle, but thanks for joining us here this evening. Appreciate you. Ain't seen you for a minute. I did check out your shows, but I didn't have a chance to leave you a comment. But having said that, check out my guy Kyle there as well. We got Caesar in the building. Do the Vikings trade up to the top 3? We're going to talk about that, Caesar. I can guarantee you we're going to talk about that. If so, which team is the most real? You know what? I'm going to save that one for later, Caesar, but I just wanted to shout you out here real quick. We got my guy Angel Dust in the building. What's going on? Cheers to you as well as always. We've got one of the queens in the building. We've got Mary, the matriarch, chicken soup for the soul, as my partner on Tuesdays would say. Mary is one of the longtime Vikings content creator supporters. So Mary, thank you so very kindly for joining us here. We got Tyson. What's going on, Tyson? Good to see you. Thanks again for coming. We got Dylan in the building. What's going on? Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. And we got my guy Two-Tone Tony. Hey, what's going on? Good to see you. And we got AJ. What's popping? Hey, you guys popping in on the Thursday night before the Super Bowl. So, okay, I've gotten through my shout outs here. So now that we are 5 minutes into the bit, let's actually start talking. Should we talk about JJ? Should we talk about Kirk Cousins? No, before we do that, I almost forgot. I'll start with you, Will. How long you been a Vikings fan? How did you get indoctrinated into this lovely fandom of the purple and gold?
I think officially being born and raised Minnesota, it sort of just happens. But for me, the moment wherein I became a Vikings fan was seeing Brett Favre land in a helicopter in Minnesota. It was that moment where I sort of jumped on the bandwagon, if you will, and actually bought into being a Vikings fan. My first Vikings jersey was a purple number 4. So it was very strange to have sort of my first season be one where the Super Bowl was there and then it wasn't, and here we are today. So
I think it was yesterday.
15 years.
Yesterday would have been, I think, the 14th anniversary of the actual Super Bowl that was played this year. I saw that somewhere, but anyway. So you born and raised in Minnesota, you said.
Yep.
We're not sending any people to your house, but where do you live?
Well, currently I live in the Twin Cities,
okay.
Born and raised up in the Brainerd Lakes area.
Okay, there you go. I grew up in Cottage Grove. I live in Rochester currently. All right, Jordan, give us your story. How'd you get indoctrinated, my friend?
Whole life. I'm a LIFO, unfortunately. Brought home from the hospital in a purple and gold blanket, and I'm gonna say the day that I became a fan, because you can be raised a fan and then choose a different fandom, but I had a Chester Taylor jersey.
There you go.
The season before we drafted Adrian Peterson, and those are some of, like, I'm a youngin, so those are some of my first, like, real football memories, where, like, my dad pounding the table in that 07 or 08, whichever year it was, draft, saying, Brady Quinn. It has to be Brady Quinn. He's going to be so good. He went to Notre Dame, and me and my family are, we're Gold Domos. So we love our Fighting Irish, and ended up going with AP. He didn't understand it. He was like, we've got Chester Taylor. But, I mean, it was one of those, like, vinyl jerseys where, like, the sticker comes off.
Yes,
and
yes.
There was no numbers on it after about 6 months, because I just, oh my gosh, I loved putting that thing on and walking around in it. But yeah, man, Cincinnati area, that's where I'm at. I'm, down in the Midwest, and I have been up to Minnesota for a game. I got to do that last year, and didn't get to do much sightseeing, but got to be in the area and see the Twin Cities, and just absolutely love it. I mean, and obviously love the team. So,
well, let me give a quick shout to my guy Dave from Vikings First and SKOL. And if you guys don't already subscribe to the Vikings First and SKOL YouTube feed, as well as their podcast feed on whatever podcast aggregator you use, go ahead and give my guys a sub there. Dave, thanks for joining us here this evening as well. Well, I'll say this. I was born in 79, so going on 45 years old. I pretty much was indoctrinated from the get-go. I have memories of the 87 run, and it was right after the Twins won their first World Series. Now, I was 8 years old at the time, so I didn't quite get it. Like, after the Twins beat the Cardinals, I said, okay, sweet, we won. So who do we play next? No, that's it. We're the champions. That's as far as it goes. And so at that point, I'm like, oh, the Vikings almost got to the Super Bowl. I guess, hey, Minnesota sports, we got the Twins winning and the Vikings almost getting there and just barely missed. This is going to be like this all the time. Yeah, this ain't Boston, but I digress. And in all seriousness, I'll just be upfront with you guys. Did I enjoy the 2009 season? Of course I did. Of course, anytime we beat the Packers twice and destroy the Cowboys in the playoffs, it's fun. But I never wanted Brett Favre. I grew up in Brett Favre's prime when he was winning a Super Bowl and 3 straight MVPs with Mike Holmgren, Reggie White and company. So I was one of those older guys that was like, no, I'd rather just stay with Tavares Jackson and Sage Rosenfels than go with Brett. Now, once they made the choice to get him, did I support him? Yes. But when my parents said, hey, do you want a Brett Favre jersey for Christmas? I said, no, I'll just burn it or I'll exchange it for somebody else. So don't waste your money. Don't waste your money. But having said all that, I can understand. And I will say this. My daughter was born the Saturday before the week 1 game against the Cleveland Browns in 2009.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, I watched Brett Favre's first regular season game on a 17-inch screen in a hospital room. Yeah. Yes. So there you go. Let me get a couple of shouts here. I try to not to get too far behind and say appreciative things to the people joining us here. We got Dave. It always moves when I try to click on somebody. We got Dave Thibodeau in the building. What's going on, Dave? Good to see you. We got my guy, Too Evil to Hope. I'll warn you guys right now. Too Evil to Hope is dry humor. Okay. Don't take anything he says seriously. I actually got to meet him once. He's a wonderful human being, but I'm surprised he hasn't already called me. He likes to call me Iced Tea. Okay. Or Iced Tay now that we got the Taylor Swift thing going on. But anyway, I digress. Dyson says been a fan since 84, 85. There you go. I am the only one here that has seen. Am I the only one here? Well, no, I never saw a game at Met Stadium. I'm guessing my guests here have not either. So put it in the chat. Who else saw a game at Met Stadium before the old Humpty Dump Metrodome? And we get to call it Humpty Dump because it was our stadium. Okay. Anybody else calls it, we got a problem, but I digress. Okay. Where do you guys want to start tonight? You want to start Kirk? Let's start JJ. Let's let it marinate a little bit before we get to the hot topic of Kirk Cousins here. Justin Jefferson went on the media tour and said, yeah, I want to get paid and I want to be respected. I want to be appreciated. And half the fan base is like, wow, what a selfish guy. I'm like, really? How is that selfish? Well, Kirk said he's willing to take a team-friendly deal. I'm like, and Kirk don't mean it. He's saying it because, he just wants to be the good guy. I mean, you can't take anything that is said at face value. It just kind of is what it is. But if anybody needs to take a cut, for me, it's the 36-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury, not the 24-year-old wide receiver who hasn't made $250 million. But what are you guys' thoughts on what JJ said yesterday? And then I'm going to circle back to the ridiculous Cowherd trade. Will, I'll start with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got zero issue with him saying those things. I don't read much into them either because everything he says is on par with what he deserves based on his output, his leadership, the way he conducts himself. There is just so much about Justin Jefferson and his aura that deserves the bag, as the kids call it. And
right.
It's really not too complicated. I think, if you're taking the perspective of the Vikings front office, you pay Justin and then you figure everything else out.
Correct.
So that's to me, it's very simple.
Jordan, what say you?
I'm gonna piggyback that. I don't know where the sudden the shock value is in. Yeah, Justin Jefferson wants to be the highest non-quarterback in football. Feel like that's not a surprise to anyone. That's been the talking point for 2 years now because he's been the best wide receiver in football since his second season in football. So I think you pay him personally. It'll be a fun go around the room and ask what you would give up or what you would want to see brought back in a Justin Jefferson trade. But I mean, I say pay the man unless he's asking for legitimate top 10 quarterback money,
Patrick Mahomes money, right?
Yeah, unless he's coming in and he's like, hey, I heard Kirk wants 2 years 90. That's what I want now. I want 2 years 90. Then it's okay, you're a little ridiculous here, but he'll probably end up getting I hope they sign him to a long term deal,
right.
5 years. And he'll probably average $35 million a season. I mean, it's going to be a lot of money to be paying the guy, but I do think he's worth it. And you can always have a conversation whenever he's 28, 29 years old. Hopefully you have the quarterback situation figured out at that point. So you can make the decision of, okay, let's do what the Chiefs did and let's trade him and get a bunch of value and then use those picks to build other areas of the team and be more well-rounded. But especially if the plan is get a young guy in the building under center, I think you have to have Justin Jefferson there because that gives him the best chance of, oh, hey, 18 seems to always be open. That's an easy decision to make on Sundays. I'm just going to throw it that way. And so it can help with the development and help him shine a little bit and get some confidence under him. So whoever the quarterback ends up being. So I think we need to keep him at all costs.
I will say this. The Cowherd trade, where we trade Justin Jefferson to the New England Patriots and the number 11 pick for the number 3 pick, plus some other future assets, is beyond preposterous. I did a quick 3-minute video on it. So after the show, check that out about how ridiculous and asinine that is. So I'm not going to give that one much more time than that. I have long since said I signed Justin Jefferson within reason to pert near whatever he wants because he is the best wide receiver on the planet. He is not somebody that's top 5, top 10. He's the best wide receiver on the planet. Kirk Cousins, he's 8 to 10 in quarterbacks. Now, we have a planet of about 7 billion people, so that's still pretty daggone good. But again, that guy's 36 years old. That guy's coming off an Achilles. We'll talk about more of him later. As far as Justin Jefferson goes, the only thing that I would even entertain trading Justin Jefferson for is 2/3 of a Herschel Walker type deal. Now, you guys might be a little too young for the Herschel Walker deal, but I'm sure you've heard about it once or twice. As an example that I've given, the Arizona Cardinals have the number 4 overall pick, and they have an early pick in the 20s because they had Houston's pick from last year because they traded with them. They also have 2 third-round picks this year because they have theirs in Houston's. If you told me that the Cardinals would call and say, we'll give you the 2 first-round picks, the 2 third-round picks, and next year's number 1 pick, I'm not saying I would do it, but I'm saying I'm listening at that point. I'm listening to it. I'd probably try to see if I can swindle 1 or 2 other things. And I also then say, well, all right, what is JJ asking for? What is it that has kept us from actually doing this deal thus far? And obviously Arizona's not going to offer you 3 firsts and 2 thirds. So it's a non-starter for me. You signed Justin Jefferson. He's 24 years old. Again, Nick Mullins. I'm not saying he's going to lead us to a Super Bowl with Justin Jefferson, but he's going to be able to get Justin Jefferson the ball for the most part. That 3rd and 27 play, for example. Name your quarterback du jour, whether we trade up or not, or whether we just stand pat at 11 and take one there, whether we take one early in the 2nd round. I don't care. I want my next quarterback to have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. That's a good starting point for a young quarterback. Whether you get a bridge quarterback or not, that's another discussion we could probably have. All I'm going to say is this. No, you don't trade Justin Jefferson. I know there's a case to be made where paying that guy that kind of money, how's that any different than Kirk? Well, it's different than Kirk because if you can get a quarterback on a rookie contract, that makes it okay to pay Justin Jefferson his money. So
let's talk about the idea of trading up in general, because I think it's an interesting one, obviously. Okay. And this team is in a position where quarterback is either the first draft pick or one of the first couple draft picks, or they're re-signing Kirk Cousins. So maybe I'll start with you, Jordan. What's the going rate for you if the Vikings were to trade up to draft a quarterback? And presumably, I guess where I'm coming from is you got to get in the top 3, because to me, I see all 3 of those teams needing a quarterback unless the Bears decide to keep Fields. Those first 3 picks are probably going to be quarterbacks. So that's kind of the idea of going from 11 to 3 at least.
Yeah, so I want to make sure I understand the question. We're talking about the value of going from 11 up into top 2 or 3,
yeah, and moving up, and what we'd have Washington to give up.
New England. Yeah, I think that, you look at what, I don't want to use the Carolina trade from last year because I feel like they gave up DJ Moore, and it's weird to equate a known quantity good wide receiver or good player with a draft pick because there's so much unknown about them. And sometimes that's a good thing where it's like, oh, it could be the next, Randy Moss. If we take, like Rome Odunze could be the next Moss. Holy cow. And so there is some hope there that, it's kind of unknown, but I'm personally, I like my known quantities. So I think it's obviously going to be the 11. It's obviously going to be next year's first round pick. And then you start talking about, would you rather give up like the 2026 first round pick? Or would you rather give up like this year's 2nd round pick? It starts getting into this territory of what's more valuable to you. And to me, I would rather give up the assets now and then have the assets for when we know what the quarterback is. And if the quarterback isn't good, then we have more trade ammo if we end up with another fringe top 10 pick. Maybe it's even higher because we don't have good quarterback play. And we saw what the Vikings did this season, with Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins under center, and it was a little shaky down the stretch. So we get to see, okay, maybe things go south. We have like the 5th pick. We don't need as much, but we still have to have that ammunition later to move up and get, I don't know, Arch Manning in a couple of years if Jaden Daniels ends up being a bust or whoever it is that they go up and get this season. So that's my 2 cents. I would rather give up now value so we have the draft picks later, especially because if that quarterback hits, well, now you have a first round pick to go draft a defensive tackle, a left tackle, whatever the team, deems that they need at that time. Justin, I want to get your thoughts on that because I know I want to flip this a little bit. If you are Washington or New England, because we're taking Chicago out of this, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
If you're either one of those teams, are you locked in? Because if the Vikings had the 3rd overall pick, there's a 0% chance they're trading out of it if they like Jaden Daniels. Do you think that there might be a chance that 1, 2, 3? They've already written the slips. They've called each other. They said, you're taking Caleb, you're taking May, and we're going to take Jaden if I'm New England. do you think there's a chance that they won't take calls about those picks, and it might just be a done deal that no, they want their quarterback?
No, I totally agree that is a definite possibility. I'm gonna circle. I'm gonna tell the story to tell the story. I'm gonna circle back to your question. When the Vikings started off 1-4, I said if they lose to San Francisco, go ahead and trade off pending free agents. Trade away Danielle Hunter. See if you can get Kirk to get traded to Atlanta or anywhere he would waive his no trade clause to. Trade away Harrison Smith if he's amenable to doing that. If that's the one guy where you ask if he wants to be traded because he's such a legacy player. But KJ Osborne, Ezra Cleveland, the guy that they ultimately did. Then they beat San Francisco. And I said, okay, now you've shown me something. You finally beaten somebody other than Chicago and Carolina. Well, then when Kirk blows out his Achilles against the Packers, I don't care that we won that game. We're 4-4. We know we're not going anywhere. So I would have still traded those guys, not because that's a tank. That's just a reset. If the Vikings don't re-sign Danielle Hunter, then it was a bad move to not trade him for some assets. And oh, by the way, instead of going 3-6, you might have gone, I don't know, 2-7, 1-8, maybe even 0-9, and then you'd be around the 6th pick, and it'd be a lot easier to trade up. Or heaven forbid, if you had gone 0-9, you'd actually be, I think, the 4th. Doesn't really matter. So to your point, if you had the 4th, 5th, or 6th pick, you'd have a shot of getting into the top 3. As it stands right now, you very well could be right. And I'm starting to think that might be the case, that these other teams, it doesn't matter if you offered them 5 first-round picks. If they say, no, we want to take one of these quarterbacks here, then it doesn't matter. And that's why I always say to people, it's like, oh, you can just trade up. No, you have to have a willing trade partner. So to circle back to your question, I'm going to circle back to both questions. I would give whatever it took. I would give the 11. I would give our 2nd-round pick this year, our 1st and 2nds next year. I would do what it takes to get to number 3 and take whichever one of those 3 quarterbacks are there. But that might not be enough. I agree. It might not be. I would say hey, Washington, hey, you guys got a new ownership. Daniel Snyder's gone. Maybe why don't you guys take Kirk Cousins back and trade us this pick? Yeah, right. That's not going to happen. But no, it's very well possible that there might not be a package that you could offer, kind of like last year. Now, last year was different. We were picking in the mid-20s. So to go from the mid-20s all the way up to 3 or 4 was far more difficult than 11. But that doesn't mean that 11 is a guarantee that there's going to be a team that's willing to trade back, 8, 9 spots. So
there was also an interesting thing in that report about, the Vikings, and for those of the uninitiated, the report was the Vikings tried to move heaven and earth to get Anthony Richardson, and the team that they were talking with thought that the Vikings' future first-round picks were going to be too late, as well as they didn't want to go from top 5 all the way down to the, mid-20s.
Right.
But there is an idea of, if you're New England and you think Jaden Daniels is him, and I keep saying Jaden Daniels because I love me some Jaden Daniels, but if you think he's a lock to be, Lamar Jackson, name your top 5 MVP caliber quarterback, you might not want the Vikings 2025, 2026 first round picks, because now those turn into oh crap, what if they make and win the Super Bowl with Jaden Daniels, which we think he's capable of doing. We're talking about basically a 2nd round pick now. And we're talking about late first round picks, which aren't as valuable. And do we really want to risk missing on this? Because all 3 of the teams that are up there that need quarterbacks, I think Chicago's the only one you could make the case maybe no, but yeah, you do. If we're being honest with each other, I like Justin Fields, but he's limited and he hasn't taken that step. So you can't bet that he's going to. So all 3 of those teams are very quarterback hungry. Well, I kind of want to hear you give that.
I kind of hope that I hope somebody else trades up with Chicago where it moves Chicago to 5 or 6 or 7 or something like that. And that maybe at that point, whoever they trade with does something crazy and doesn't take Caleb Williams, who everybody consensus says is number 1. Let's say they take Drake May number 1 as opposed to that. And that throws the board into chaos because, as you said, if the 3 teams at the top are already dead set on taking the quarterbacks 1, 2, 3, you need something like that to spice up the draft. I don't know, though. I would really be shocked if Chicago didn't take Caleb Williams and then try to pedal off Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields coming out of Ohio State. I would have loved for the Vikings to have made that trade with Carolina at the time, and ultimately Chicago did. And I think under the tutelage of Kevin O'Connell, Justin Fields will probably have a higher ceiling. As it stands right now, no. I think Jordan Love's got a higher ceiling than Justin Fields does.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty evident at this point with the last half of the season that Love and the Packers had. So, yeah, I'd be shocked if Chicago did not take Caleb Williams. I would. But unless they get a sweetheart of a deal, if they can find a way to do like what they did last year, for example, where they're still in the top 10 and get a first round next year, I don't know. But Will, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to take a different perspective. I think there's something that probably needs to be said with this too, is that the 49ers, who have historically been, especially under John Lynch, a very good drafting team and a good developing team, they gave up, heaven and earth for Trey Lance. It was a very similar move from 11. It was from 12 to 3.
Right.
They gave up 3 first-round picks. I think there was a compensatory third in there. Didn't work out. And obviously San Francisco turned out fine. They're in the Super Bowl again. But
funny how that works.
The idea of moving up for one of these guys as if they are a known sure commodity is not as certain as I think we want to believe. So I don't know. Are either of you sold enough on, because probably Jaden Daniels, that's where we're sitting, right? Sold enough on Jaden Daniels as a quality enough NFL prospect to give up the amount of capital we're talking about, 3, 4, 5 draft picks?
I say yes. I have my rankings as Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and then Caleb Williams. And I know Caleb Williams is probably the most talented of the 3, but he plays a little too much hero ball for me. If it's 3rd and 7 and you got a guy wide open for 13 yards, you don't need to throw a 30-yard bomb to try to be a hero. And hopefully you would think an NFL head coach, particularly an offensive minded one, would be able to coach that out of him. But there's just some things about Caleb. Again, if we traded up to 3 and that was the guy, I would not be disappointed. But yes, I do believe that all 3 of those guys, for different reasons, and I would be happy with any one of those 3. So I'll just leave it at that. My answer is yes. Jordan?
I'm also gonna say yes, and obviously I've already said, if you haven't watched Load the Box, I highly recommend that you head over and obviously give us a listen, watch, however you want to consume Load the Box. Just get us in your life, because we try to do good stuff. But I've been riding the Jaden Daniels train pretty hard, I feel like, and he's somebody I hated like as a draft prospect. Like at the beginning of the season, I was like, yeah, I can't throw the ball. And then he comes out and he looks like he has maybe the best deep ball in the draft. And I'm like, how did that happen all of a sudden? And it's crazy, but development, it's nuts. That's what college is for. But yeah, I would move heaven and earth to go up and get Jaden Daniels. I think it's not like he's, blowing past guys at, ITT Tech. He's playing SEC defenses, Alabama defenses, and he's just running away from people. And look, he does have some decision-making issues, but it's not even the oh, you shouldn't have thrown that ball. He's too willing to get hit. Like, he's too ballsy to, just be like, yeah, 275-pound linebacker, I'll truck you. I don't care that I'm 6'5" and 190 pounds or 200 pounds. Like, I'll try to try. And he gets blown up too much. So you have to coach some of that out of him and tell him just learn to slide. But I just, man, I love him. But I want to talk about Caleb Williams for just 1 second. And not really Caleb Williams, but another guy who is not being mocked to the Vikings, but being mocked in that right at the start of the teens range. That's Bo Nix. And Bo Nix, big knock that I feel like he has is he's the anti-Caleb Williams. He's too ego to take a check down. And I think it's funny when you're watching quarterbacks in college, there's this fine line between, and this is what makes, Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar and all the greats right now great. There's a fine line that the greats walk where it's 3rd and 7. I know I can get the first down, but if something's wide open down, I'm not going to miss a touchdown just because I want to move the chains. And some guys are too conservative, and it means their offenses aren't as explosive. And some guys, like, this is what Caleb Williams might be. Caleb Williams might be too aggressive and end up taking a bunch of sacks on 3rd and mediums and will flame out because he can't get it through his mind that check downs are not a bad world. They're not a bad play. Those just, they're not sexiest play to make, I guess. So I do think it's funny that, Bo Nix's big knock is, he takes too many checkdowns, and Caleb Williams' big knock is he just won't do it.
Right.
Like, he just he
put those two together and average them out, and then they'd both be really, really great.
Give me Bo Williams or Caleb Nix,
Nice.
and fuse them together, and we've got ourselves generational, like, Hall of Fame Chasen Brady type talent. I think what you actually get is Patrick Mahomes. But
so if there is, that marriage comes to fruition, the Vikings, let's just say they don't trade up, they stay at 11. At that point, you're probably not drafting a quarterback at 11, right? So then we're moving back to the end of the first round, potentially with a trade, or do a little slick Rick and get a couple seconds for a seconds and a first for the first, and you move back and you just compile draft picks. Would you guys lean towards Bo Nix as that sort of safety security blanket with a late first, early second, or is JJ McCarthy more spicy?
I'd go Michael Penix, then JJ McCarthy, then I'd go Bo Nix, not knowing where any of those guys are going to be. Michael Penix might be gone. I think taking Michael Penix at 11, would I be upset by it? No. Do I think that's the best value of the 11th pick? Probably not. But if that's your guy and you can't get to the top 3 and you don't want to take the chance of him not being there, in the 20s, late 20s, where you try to trade back up, because again, you got to find a willing trade partner, as we said already. But I'm kind of out on Bo Nix. And maybe it's unfair that I see too much of the check down Charlie in him, as you guys just described there. So to me, I would go with Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy. Yeah, if I could get Bo Nix in the 3rd round, sure, I'd take him there, just because you then have used your first 2 picks to get other assets, whether you've drafted 2 guys or whether you've made some trade backs and then gotten some more value out of them. Sure, I'll take Bo Nix in the 3rd round, but I'm not taking Bo Nix in the 1st or 2nd. I will definitely say it like that.
I think the concern I have, just really quickly on Michael Penix, is obviously the health. And I think it's pretty clear that his mechanics have been impacted by his health, and you can't knock the output and you can't knock the accuracy in the deep ball. Mm-hmm. The biggest concern, though, is this just going to turn into Sam Bradford? And
that's a good point.
You draft a guy who looked unbeatable, down the stretch of last season, but then he flames out after 2 years because he can't stay on the field. So that's my main concern. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was not what I was going with, but someone had to bring up, like, the guy is old for a reason. He didn't just play a bunch of college football. He didn't play that much college football. He got injured a lot, and he had 2 knees and like a neck, a couple, like 2, was it 3 knees? Or he had a bunch of injuries. I know he had 2 ACLs
and 3 season-ending injuries.
Yeah.
Yes, and so and one of the ACLs was the same knee twice, which I'm not a doctor, and I think that doesn't actually matter. Like, I think it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's just happened to be that leg, but like. Right. I don't know. That's sketchy.
I mean, Robert Smith had a lot of injury history his first 3-4 years, as an example.
Absolutely. I think that, look, and I love me some Michael Penix. I really do. I think that he, like, you point out all the positives. You watch him play. I mean, he's really accurate. He's really, he likes the deep stuff, but I think he does walk that line really well of, I'm going to try to go for the throat when I feel it's appropriate, but I'm also aware that it's 3rd and 2. I just need to move the chains and live to die another day. So I'll just take a check down here. And so I like that about him. I really like comps to NFL players, and specifically current players. I don't like when someone compares somebody to like Barry Sanders, and it's like, what? He hasn't played in so long. Like, the game is so different. So like current NFL player comps, and I had one a long time ago about Bo Nix, and I can't get it out of my head, and I think I agree with it. Bo Nix reminds me a lot of Jalen Hurts, because he's mobile, but he's not out. Like, he's not, I almost said RG3. He's not Lamar Jackson mobile. Mm-hmm. Like, he's not going to, outrun people, and he will a few, but he's more extend plays in the pocket, maybe, get you like a little 15-yard run. He's strong, but you have some legitimate concerns about accuracy, deep ball, all of these things. And Jalen Hurts obviously played in a Super Bowl last year and had a pretty good season this year. Not as good, but I don't think anyone would argue with you that he's a good quarterback. He's a good NFL quarterback. So Bo Nix, but the funny thing about this comp is, and I love, Justin, that you said you would love Bo Nix in the third round. That's where everyone had Jalen Hurts going. Everyone was like, yeah, he's a late day 2 guy. And he ended up going in the second round, but he was still a day 2 guy. And so I see all these mock drafts that are coming out talking about Bo Nix being the 12th overall pick above McCarthy and Penix. And I'm like, what? Like, even Spencer Rattler, who call me Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, but I love projects who I just love my project guys. And Spencer Rattler, yeah, he has some like decision-making stuff, but God, does that arm have some talent in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like if you're taking a guy in late day 2, early day 3, I'd rather see like a Spencer Rattler live arm. Holy cow, this guy stands out, rather than Bo Nix, who it's like, okay, yeah, you can check it down, but we can go sign,
Nick Mullins,
Will Goodwin to check it down. Like, so I
Will will take the paycheck, right, Will?
Absolutely. Hey, I was a sprained ankle away from the league, so I was close.
Well, we've been yapping for a little bit. I'm way behind on some shout outs here, so I hope people are still in the building that put a comment in. First off, I just have to put Tyson's up there. Cowherd is a moron. Yes, absolutely. Shout out JDT93. What's going on, JDT? Thanks for stopping by. Hope I didn't miss you guys there. If those trades don't work, we got JJ for now. No, we're not worried about that one anymore. JJ's going to sign here. We'll be fine. And you know what? If 2 years from now, if he pulls a Stephon Diggs, okay. I don't think he will, but I digress.
Even if he pulled a Stephon Diggs, if he does it in the way that Diggs did, that we would get so much from Justin Jefferson.
Exactly.
I mean, the Diggs trade was like, okay, that sucks that he's gone, but he was like a fringe top 10 receiver. Jefferson is like a number 1 with a bullet.
He's one.
Like there's no debate.
Totally agree.
Oh man, yeah. Sorry, I want to catch up on chats, but
no, that's fine. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Shout out Sarah, what's going on? Thanks for coming here tonight. Mary said text her your address if you didn't see that one earlier there. Patriots need more than a quarterback. I think they move back. I would love to. I'd love for them to move back to say around 11. I absolutely would. Patriots sign Cousins or Falcons do. I certainly hope so. But we'll talk a little bit more about him in just a quick second here. If Daniels falls out of the top 3, well, yeah, that's true. If he falls out of the top 3, you better get up there, because I saw a mock draft where he fell to 6 and that the Falcons traded up with the Chargers in order to get him at that point. If he gets past 3, you call Arizona and say, all right, let's talk. Shout out my guy Rap from Vocal Viking. I almost said Purple Pocket Podcast again. I'm still kind of getting used to the new logo. What's going on, Rap? Thanks for joining. Appreciate you as always, my bro. Let's see. Why stop at 5? Okay, that's what I mean about too evil. 50 years, 5 or 5. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. There was a couple of comments about Chicago trading here. 49ers have great depth, which we don't. Yes, because they have drafted well for the last 6 years. The Vikings haven't had a great draft since 2015. SKOL Mafia thinks Justin or JJ McCarthy will be Zach Wilson. I'm not going to. I see where you're going, but I'm going to give him a little bit of a chance before I label him.
That is
Zach
a take
Wilson.
that is like. There are people who say Michael Penix is Tua, and it's like, no, they're just both left-handed. JJ is not Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
They both just have like punchable faces and dumb haircuts. Like they just look similar.
Shout out Dan. What's going on, Dan? Good to see you. Thanks so much for coming tonight here. Yeah, and Cousins had 2. Yeah, there's that too. Tyson says we should trade back. Dan says stay at 11. Get JJ, draft defense. I don't know if you mean draft JJ at 11 or draft defense at 11 and get JJ later, but I could listen to that. The only issue you're going to run into is that you're going to have to make your decision somewhat at the start of free agency. And we're going to talk about that one here next when we talk about what we think the Vikings should do and what we ultimately think the Vikings will do with Kirk Cousins. Because yes, if you re-sign Kirk Cousins, you're not going to trade up to 3 and get a quarterback in the future. You're going to try to bolster this team and go for it again. But we'll talk about that a little bit more there later. There was one other that I wanted to get in here, guys. So I have got to find it again. JDT says draft Joe Milton. I don't think so. Rap would like that idea, but that's just not going to happen. Okay, there's my guy Duncan. Shout out Duncan. What's going on? Aloha and SKOL. I'm late, but hey, you make it. It's all good. And that's the great thing about YouTube is it's on demand. You can just hit it back later. But thanks for coming in, Duncan. We very much appreciate that. Okay, shore up the line. Say no to Kirk. Only one quarterback. The guy from LSU without giving up the future. Rattler in the fourth. I don't want to take third or fourth round guys. We've done that enough. We took a third or fourth round guy in Christian Ponder in the first round, and then we've done nothing. Well, okay, Teddy Bridgewater, and then he got hurt. Okay, I understand that, but I'm kind of done with that. We'll get to that a little bit more when we talk about Kirk, but I'm interested in just getting up, taking the plunge, and figuring out what you got to do. And what you got to do is just convince one team. You only need to convince one team there. Oh, yeah, I like that, Sarah. Sign Amon-Ra St. Brown, since apparently, according to some, he's better than Justin Jefferson. Yes, okay,
that's crazy.
Oh, breaking news, Bob Sweet. Cowboys just signed Mike Zimmer. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, welcome back to Dallas. So now we got Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer
coaching together.
That's crazy.
They were enemies in the NFC North division for years. All right, good luck, guys. Couple of old school guys. We'll see if that.
I gave a whole thing. It was about a month and a half ago. We do a segment on our show called Final Thoughts, and it was invented to just like say whatever you wanted, basically. Like it didn't have to be Viking specific. And so a couple of weeks ago, I was just like, I miss Mike Zimmer. Like, I love Kevin O'Connell. I think he's a great coach. I'm happy we have him. But I just went on like a week-long like dive of listening to old Mike Zimmer interviews when he was the coach. And
did you see the game?
Oh man, I just love him. It's probably because he lives, I think, like an hour away from me.
Right. Yeah.
Like
his ranch isn't that far.
Kentucky. Yeah. So he's right across the river. So.
Well, let's address Dan's here, where he said to get a bridge quarterback, a Minshew, a Dalton, Mayfield, Darnold, Tannehill. I'm out on Tannehill. The only guy in that list that I think is gettable, because I don't think Mayfield's going to be gettable, I would go with Gardner Minshew. I would go with, I'll throw Jacoby Brissett in that list. But of that list, if we don't re-sign Kirk and then we draft a quarterback by hook or by crook at whatever point in time, would you rather go with Nick Mullins as your bridge quarterback, or would you rather sign one of these guys? Will, you go ahead.
I'd rather go with one of those guys. I saw enough of Nick Mullins for about 5 weeks there. I like what Nick Mullins provides in terms of explosion and big playability, but the amount of turnovers is unsustainable, and you can't win that way.
Right.
It became very clear. So I'd rather have a quarterback who's not going to throw 2 interceptions a game. And so I'd honestly be okay with Andy Dalton. I think, if we're going to go the bridge route, I don't want to go the bridge route. I'm not in favor of that. I think it's sort of just like delaying your death a little bit, but someone like Andy Dalton, who's been around the block, he's been in the playoffs. He's ran some teams relatively smoothly. I mean, the Saints and the Cowboys, when he was their quarterback, obviously weren't elite teams, but the couple times where he played the Vikings, he gave them some fits because he's going to make the right play. He's going to find the right person. And so, honestly, I was thinking whatever it was, week 4 when the Vikings went to Carolina, I was grateful that Bryce Young was healthy because I didn't want to face Andy Dalton, who
might have beat us
at that point in the season. So
yeah. Let me get a quick shout. George, I saw you and I starred you, and I know it was a half an hour ago. Hope you're still in the building. Shout out to my guy, George. He says trade them both. Well, we can't trade Cousins because he's a free agent, but no. I know I'm circling back because I lost track. So sorry about that, George, but I got to get you shout. Anyway. Let's talk about Kirk. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to jump in and say, from that list that I can't remember the name of the person that threw it up there. Thank you, Dan. From that list, I think Minshew would be my favorite, just because I don't believe in tanking. I believe in trying to win games and building. I do think there's something to the culture and everything. Now, if you're 1-5 and you're coming up to the trade deadline, you can make some business decisions, like we said at the beginning of the show. But I think Minshew would give if the plan is to get Minshew and draft JJ McCarthy, and you want to let McCarthy sit for a season before you play him. I think Minshew gives the Vikings a good chance at a fun who knows? Maybe it's, wild card-esque season. Maybe you win a playoff game, and you're not going to have a top 10 pick, but you've got your quarterback in the building. So, go take whatever you want, at 23 or whatever like that. So, I love me some Gardner Minshew, and I don't know anybody that doesn't.
Well, let's hit the reset button. Wipe your feet at the door, ladies and gentlemen. If you didn't hit the like button on the way in, hit that like button. Go subscribe to my guys over on Load the Box. And if you're watching on Load the Box, give me a sub too, if you could, please. But if you could, regardless, hit the like button on both channels here so we get this aggregated out a little bit more, if it all possible. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything to hit the like button. Just wipe your feet at the door. And like I said, consider giving my guys a sub here. That's why we're having them on here. Let's get them some exposure. Let's get their sub count up here tonight. I want to see them get, at least 5 to 10 new subs here, ladies and gentlemen. But I digress. Okay, let's get to the main course. Kirk Ezekiel Cousins. I don't know if Ezekiel's his middle name or
it's
not.
Not Ezekiel, but that was close.
Yeah, I know. If you know the bit, you know the bit. But I digress. Okay, 2 sides of the coin. Some believe that if Kirk Cousins hadn't got hurt, the Vikings would have been playing the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. I do not subscribe to that theory. Yes, the defense was playing great through the middle of the season, but that last month of defense, not so good. Yes, Kirk Cousins was playing extremely well. I'll remind people, the team was 4-4. I don't want to get too far down the line of where we would have been. I think we probably would have had 9, maybe 10 wins, maybe win 1 playoff game, but I don't think we get past the division round of the playoffs. But regardless, what do you guys do? Do you give in to Kirk Cousins and give him what he's asking for? Do you take him back only if he comes down a little bit on his price tag? And if you do re-sign Kirk Cousins, how close do you think this team is to being competitive? And when I say competitive, I don't mean competitive to win 9 or 10 games and squeak out the division and maybe get 1 win in the playoffs. For me, I'm sorry, but my standard is a little bit higher. After 44 years, I'm kind of done being in the middle. The Vikings are really good at not being bad, which is a good thing in theory, but they're also really good of not having a lot of sustained greatness either. So I'll give my thoughts on Kirk Cousins because I'll save that for the end because the audience here, they already know my thoughts on it. But Jordan, I'll start with you. Do you re-sign him or only if he takes a deal? What are your thoughts at this point?
Yeah, I need a deal. I need a deal big time from Kirk Cousins. And okay, big time's kind of an exaggeration. I would do like a 2-year, $60 million. Like that would be me, I think. What happened?
Oh, Dan just subscribed to us. Thank you,
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Heck yeah,
Appreciate
Dan. You. Heck yeah. Welcome to Load the Box. But yeah, man, I mean, I think like 2 years, 60 is okay. That is like 30 million, but and this is my problem. And I did a whole bit with a handkerchief and a top hat and everything. I didn't do a top hat, but this cap magic that people talk about. And I just briefly, basically, I saw one of these cap magicians on X.com break it down for me. And they were like, this is how we keep him. And it only adds like $3 million to the cap in 2024. And he showed me the contract. And it had like prorated signing bonuses where we were paying Cousins like $20 million in 2029. And I was like, he's going to be like 43 by that point. Like he's going to be as old as Justin is at that point. And, like I just don't think many like Tom Brady didn't even, play as long as that would make Kirk Cousins playing. Cause that's 5 months. No, he did. That was about whenever he went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl. But, yeah, I mean, that would be when Cousins is 41 years old. He'd probably be retired, and we would still be on the books paying him $20 million. Just that way we can maybe contend in this area. So that's a big tone off to me. Like they have done this kicking the can so much that it feels like it's time to take the medicine, in my opinion. So I would move off of him, and unless he came like way down. But I think other teams are interested, and I think Cousins is interested in other teams because that means, the price is going up. And more power to him, by the way. I love Kirk Cousins as a human. I hope he goes and gets like a Monday Night Football gig or something like that. I like listening to him talk about the game of football. He's a really good guy, and he should want to make as much money as he can while he's in the league. I just hope the Vikings aren't the team that, gives him $90 million over the next 2 seasons. Well, I know that you have a little bit different of an opinion, but it's
not a whole lot different. I think, if I gave a 1-sentence answer, it would sound a lot different, but because to me, I would give Cousins a couple years, but I wouldn't give him more than 30, 35. If he's asking for that 90 million, then I would say like, thanks for the last 6 years, but we're good. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. What I think the Vikings will do, or let me back up for a second. Justin, your opening rant to this, I was one of the people that thought the Vikings would still be playing. And I still actually do stand by that, because I think what the Vikings were finally turning into in those 3 wins without Justin Jefferson was a team that was, yes, it was built on defense, but there was a consistency to the offense that was starting to hum. And, Adolfo-Mensa and O'Connell said it a bunch, but the idea of Kirk Cousins playing the best football of his career, and I think it's true, and I think he was playing at an MVP level. So all that being said, I would like to see him back. However, the cap constraints and looking towards the future with the lens that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa wears, I don't see it being viable. Because I think Kwesi is going to look at this draft. He's going to look at the cap. You got the Danielle Hunter potential contract looming. Christian Darrisaw is going to have to get paid in a year or so. Justin Jefferson's obviously going to have to get paid. TJ Hawkinson is getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a world wherein you can build a sustainable defense and and still pay the quarterback. You're going to have to basically live on draft picks with the defense. And, if you trust Brian Flores enough, then sure, go ahead and take that route and let him basically do the drafting this year for the defense. But I think with the way that Adolfo-Mensa lives and his ideas of value and pounding the table for value, they're not going to go full Rams. We talked about this last week. They're not going to do the full Rams thing where they trade all their picks and they, jump 2 feet into the deep end thinking that either this year or next year is the year. And if not, then we're fired. I don't see them taking that path. So I'm a little bit different than you, Jordan, but not a whole lot different. I think there's a little too much reasoning that has to go into this. And if you really truly believe that 2024 is a season where the Vikings, with these looming contracts and question marks on defensive personnel, if you think that this is the year that you can go for it, sign Kirk Cousins. But if this is not actually a year where you think you can literally win the Super Bowl, then we have to move on.
I will try to keep this concise because people say to me sometimes, Justin, get to your point already. First off, shout out SKOL for Life Barber. There you go, guys. All right, we're up to at least 3 now. We
are up to 5 since
we're up to 5. All right, can we give 5 more, ladies and gentlemen? Come on, y'all. Help my boys out. Help my guys out. Pretty please. But I digress. And if you're watching on Load the Box, help me out if you could.
Absolutely.
In all seriousness, I look at this picture as not just about Kirk Cousins and not just about this team. I look at it from my entire lifetime and what I have seen. Real quick, I almost forgot. Shout out to my guy, Yogi. He just got you subbed down there. Shout out to Yogi. Thanks so much for coming in, Yogi. I saw you. Yeah, and then, you, we started talking. But anyway, the Wills have owned this team for 19 seasons. And what did they say when they first got here? We don't want to be a team that goes up and down. We want to be competitive every year. Being competitive every year is a great idea if you actually have 2 or 3 years where you actually compete for a championship and not 2 NFC championship games in 19 years. Yes, they've only had 4 seasons where they've had 6 wins or fewer. So you can say, wow, 15 seasons where they're not garbage. They've also only had 4 seasons of 11 wins or more. They've had 11 seasons of 7 to 10 wins, that mediocre range. So part of the reason that I want to move on from Kirk isn't an anti-Kirk thing. And I would say the same thing if I was a Dallas Cowboys fan. I think Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott, I'm not saying that they're the exact quarterback from a stylistic standpoint, because clearly they're not. But what I think they represent is if you're paying them market value, you can only build up your team to be so good enough around them. And yes, do they keep you from being terrible? Yes. We saw what the Vikings were without Kirk. They were terrible. We saw what the Cowboys were a couple years ago when Dak went down. They were terrible. But both of them have a cap of the divisional round of the playoffs, because if you're paying them their market value, 40, 45, 50 million, you have to hit pert near all of your draft picks to have a shot. So interested in moving off of a good, I'll put them both in the same category, good, not great. And if you're if you're paying a good, not great quarterback $30 million, okay, you can still build up the team to where what they can overcome is within shouting distance of winning a championship. But if you're paying them 45, 50, I don't think you can do it unless you hit on every single draft pick. So for me, I'm trying to move off Kirk Cousins because I've seen good, not great for the last 6 years. I'm going to balk a little bit at the people who always want to blame everything else that goes wrong with the Vikings and not let Kirk take some of the accountability. When he got here in 2018 and in 19, he had a top 10 defense both times. Yes, 2020, 21, 22, terrible defenses. We understand that. It took a little bit of this year's defense. It took them a few weeks to get warmed up and get acclimated with what Flores wanted, and they started to look good, and that's all well and good. I'm just saying, to me, if you sign Kirk Cousins, remember, he's got $28.5 million of dead cap hits. Now, if they re-sign him, only 10 will go on to 24, and then 10 would go on to 25, and then the rest down the road. But to me, yeah, if Kirk said, I'll take a 2-year, $60 million deal, I still wouldn't like it because I'm ready to just move on because I'm done with mediocrity. And I'm not saying it's all his fault, just to be clear. But if he takes 40, well, then his cap hit's going to be 50. Or you have to do the dipsy doodle cap trick where you push money into void years, where if you sign him to 2 years, $90 million, then you have a $40 million dead cap hit in 2026. And I'm not interested in that either. So when I put all of it together, it's one of those deals where I just want to move on. I want to take my $28.5 million dead cap hit now and be done with it and clear the books for 2025 and beyond and get the next guy in here. And if it doesn't work, then after 2 years, you draft another one. Don't be afraid of being bad. See, some in this fan base, and particularly the owners, are so afraid that, well, if we got rid of Kirk, we could be bad. Maybe, maybe not. Were the Houston Texans bad when they started CJ Stroud from the get-go? No. Were the Carolina Panthers bad with Bryce Young? Yes. So both sides of the coin, let's give equal shroud here. But sometimes you have to take a step backwards in order to take 2 steps forward. And I think we've seen the Vikings be in the middle long enough to know that it's just too difficult to push into that next tier. So that was a long-winded way of me saying, yeah, I'm ready to be done with Kirk. Yeah,
I would like to take 5 steps forward and then like 15 back. That is like, if they're going to bring him back, if we're going to like operate under this premise of like, okay, he's back, do the thing. Like go full Rams, trade, go out. And I jokingly said last week, I was like, sign, Matabuike from Baltimore. Thank you guys who are subbing to the channel. And I see that the chat on our channel is going crazy. It looks like it's a lot of people that have found us from Justin. But if you are watching this on our channel and you're not subbed to Justin, go sub to Justin. This is a direct order. But no, I mean, like, go sign Justin Matabuike, or whatever his name, Matabuike from the Ravens, and put dead money into 2050, man. Like, just kick cans down the road.
Well, to be clear, okay, here's the thing. If you have like right now, it's 28.5 million. Now, right now it's slotted 10 and a quarter, 4 and 4.
Right.
The instant that player's contract voids or is traded, everything accelerates to that. So you can put cap hits out for 5 years all you want, but the second they're gone, it all hits you all at once. So
that's fair.
Yeah, you can't put out 5 years worth of void years. And
I don't know this off the top of my head, and I'm hoping one of you guys does or can look it up very quickly. Mm-hmm. But like, what was Matt Stafford making with the Rams? Like, total cap hit, not just like what they were paying him, but like total cap hit when he won the Super Bowl, which again I pointed out last week on Load the Box, wasn't a cakewalk into the Super Bowl. They had multiple instances where I was like, yeah, they're done. Like it failed. It looked like it failed in the wild card round, dropped interception in the championship game from, going home, and then a very close game with Cincinnati. And I just don't think that, like, I don't think Kirk Cousins is that much worse. I think he's about on par with where Matt Stafford is from like a talent and an execution level. But the problem is, I do feel like some of the blame has to go to, one, the Vikings front office for not hitting on draft picks, and two, the Vikings front office or ownership or whoever it is that's saying like, no, we can't say we're going all in for the next 2 years, but then we're going to have a lot of dead money and a lot of issues for like a season or two after that, because that would mean we would be bad and we might only win, like 5 games. And I just hate that the Vikings, and whether it's the Wilfs, whether it's an ancient curse that was put on the team, they built the stadium on
whiskey bottle.
They built the stadium on a Native American burial ground, or whatever the old like poltergeist thing is. But like, they ride the fence too much, in my opinion.
Yes.
And it's like, go one way or the other. Go like, we're filling up all this cap space. We're going to sign a ton of free agents, draft a quarterback, and stout over, which doesn't mean you have to be bad. It just means you're stouting over, and it's a new era. Oh, go all in with what you got right now and say, look, we think that this core of guys, we're going to add 2 or 3 dudes to it. We're going to be a Super Bowl contender for 2 years. And if we don't win it in that, then it's a failure. And like Will said, everybody's fired. And we bring in a new coach and GM because it failed. And then we stout over. To me, it all leads to stouting over. So let's just stout over.
Let's thank you. I was going to say the same thing. But you go ahead, Will, and then I'll jump back.
I was just looking up the cap hit stuff from
Here's the deal
Stafford
with that.
Trade.
So both Matt Stafford and Jared Goff had been given their contract extension, non-rookie contracts.
Yep.
Now, when they traded each other, the cap hits were effectively a wash, but on the books, they didn't look that way because the Rams were still paying the prorated dead money of Goff. The Lions were paying the prorated dead money of Stafford, and then their salaries were this. So it ends up kind of being, you have to look at what Matt Stafford was costing the Rams and what was left over from what Goff was costing the Rams. Yep. To your point, Jordan, I think I would take at the time. I think I would put Stafford just slightly ahead of Kirk, not by much, but just slightly.
That's fair.
I think that how I would describe those two is Kirk Cousins is kind of steady Eddie in the middle, whereas Matt Stafford had both a higher ceiling and a lower floor. Stafford could torpedo a game and throw 4 interceptions, but he could also make some ridiculous plays that, with all due respect, yes, last year, or I shouldn't say last year, 2022, Kirk did a little bit more of that in the first year with O'Connell, but I get what you're saying, but I would also say that the Rams as a team were a lot better built when they went all in and traded for Stafford than what the Vikings were. To me, the Vikings window closed at the end of 2019 when they lost in the divisional round to San Francisco after beating New Orleans. And for the last 3.5, 4 seasons, they've always fooled themselves into thinking, oh, we just need to do one more player here. We just need to sign one more guy there. So let's keep all of our same guys. Not acknowledging that they didn't have an influx of young talent that was cheap because their draft picks, as we've mentioned here a couple of times, weren't all that great. And I think my issue with the Wilsons, the only issue I have with them, I'm not going to say that they're cheap owners. I'm not going to say that they're bad owners, but sometimes they put the money that they spend into the wrong positions. And they don't want to acknowledge that sometimes you have to take a step back and you can't just keep, it's like a poker tournament. Here's another, I know I'm the king of analogies. My audience will be like, oh, here he goes with his poker analogy again. So you guys haven't heard it. So I know at least 2 people will be hearing this for the first time. Real quick, shout out Frozen North. I saw you a minute ago. I ain't got it up here. Let me get that up there. There you go, Frozen. But anyway, imagine a poker tournament. You got a 4-day poker tournament, right? In the middle of day 3, somebody gets eliminated. And now everybody who's left is quote unquote in the money, where they're going to get some sort of prize money back. And as you further along, the more money you make, right? The Wilfs play a poker tournament where they're not necessarily, it's not that they don't want to win the tournament. Don't get me wrong, but they want to make sure they don't get eliminated before they get into the money, because who would want to get eliminated before getting into the money? Right. But they focus so much on that if you're playing a poker tournament with a strategy of, I got to make sure that I don't lose before I start getting paid, and you do that tournament after tournament and after tournament, you're probably getting eliminated more often than not before you get to the final table. So sometimes you have to take a risk, and that might get you eliminated before the money, but it also might get you to the final table. And to me, they always say, we want to be competitive. We want to be competitive. We don't want to take a step back. So with all that being said, to round this up, because, I think I said yesterday we were going to try to keep it under an hour, and I never do because, we, as you can see, but in all seriousness, to your point, Jordan, a minute ago, I don't want to take 2 more years and throw the kitchen sink and get Kirk back and get Daniil back. I'd like to have Daniil back, but I don't think it's going to be both of them. I think it's got to be one or the other. I don't think it can be both. Is there a way to do it where you're just completely, shooting yourself in the foot for the 2026 salary cap? Yes, but I don't think this team's close enough. So to me, I'd rather just hit the reset button now. Doesn't mean tank, just means reset. But
Yeah, I love that. And I know that you said we wanted to keep it under an hour. So in a merging of our shows, I know this has been very, I like the way you put it before we were on air saying, like, oh, like bow talk, just the way that
Yes.
two guys would get together and talk. And I think we've accomplished that. So we are going to do, if it's okay with you, Justin, one load the box-esque feature here.
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Let's do final thoughts. So I mean, let's get into a final thought.
Before final thoughts, we got to talk about the Super Bowl. We were supposed to talk about that. So we'll take 2 minutes on the Super Bowl here. Who do you like? Will, you go first?
I got the Chiefs, 32-23. I think they got a better defense and they got a better quarterback and a better coach. It's pretty simple to me.
Jordan.
I agree with that. So, I mean, like, it really better QB, better coach, better defense. San Francisco's defense, I think, has been propped up by some of the big names on it. They didn't play well down the stretch, and they didn't play well against Detroit. Dan Campbell beat Detroit. Don't get it mistaken. So which I danced on their graves. That's a whole nother show. But yeah, I mean, I think that the Chiefs defense is actually, like, it played well all season. And they have Patrick Mahomes, and I mean, I'm rooting for San Fran. I don't have anything against San Francisco. I know that they beat us in the playoffs a few years ago, but I'm in Cincinnati, and if I root for the Chiefs vocally, I will be assaulted.
You can't say that out loud, right?
Yeah, so I'm rooting for San Fran. I want to see my Bengals buddies happy, but I think, I mean, if you, I have some money on the Chiefs for this weekend.
I will say this: I am not somebody that is rooting against the Chiefs because I'm sick of seeing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs win. Okay. I was never sick of seeing Michael Jordan win. I wanted Michael Jordan to continuously win because I love watching greatness. If somebody beat him, somebody beat him. Okay. But let me just be very, very clear about what I'm about to say. I'm not out here trying to make any type of political statements or anything else. Could we just shut up about Taylor Swift? It's no different than Spike Lee with the Knicks. It's no different than who was the guy with the Lakers, the actor, Jack
Nicholson.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson.
How about Eminem with
It's no different than Eminem. So stop. In the AFC Championship game, it was 3.5 hours of TV time, and she was on for 27 seconds. Can we stop? If you don't like Taylor, fine. You don't have to. I'm not saying you are obliged to like her music, but it is no different. Oh, it's no different than when Brett Favre's wife was in the suite, and every time Brett Favre threw a touchdown, we got a shot of the suite of Deanna. So anyway, moving on. So no, I'm not. I just want to see a good game. I don't care who wins. I really don't. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of I just want to be entertained. My official pick, I think the Chiefs are going to win. The Chiefs are actually winning with defense, like you guys said. I think San Francisco. I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, San Francisco was up on these guys. What was it? It was
20-10.
20-10 with what? 8 minutes left.
6 minutes left or something. Yeah, 8 minutes.
So I think it's going to be a good game, but don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. If you want to lose some money, feel free to. I'll take your bet because until somebody knocks him off, that's not named Joe Burrow or Tom Brady, I'll take Patrick Mahomes because Brock Purdy, nice story, got a great team around him. Kyle Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes. Stop, Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, Chiefs win.
I'll do final thoughts. I'll kick us off here. I'll piggyback on what you just said, Justin. I wrote a piece for Purple PTSD a couple days ago, and it is very similar to what you're saying about the whole Taylor Swift phenomenon. I won't give away too much more. Allegedly, the Facebook comments were not very happy with everything I had to say, so go take a look. It is a very, I think, a very thoughtful, well-written piece. Very much in line with what you're saying, Justin, but check it out. Check out purpleptsd.com, vikingsterritory.com.
Tell you what, why don't you grab the link and put it in the chat for people to click on that, and we can get that in there. All right. Did you do your final shout out in the zone? What's going on, Zoe? Good to see you. Thank you kindly. And again, while we're at it, we'll hit the reset button, hit the like buttons, and hit the like buttons on both channels. If you're watching over on Purple and Gold for Days and you haven't already, hit up my guys over on Load the Box. What are we up to here now? We started at 50, so we got at least 9 that I saw. All right, we're up to 6. All right, we got our 10. Let's see if we can get 5 more.
Thank you.
By tomorrow morning, if you're watching this back later, I want to see at least 65 subs to these guys. before this time tomorrow. And if you're watching back over on Load the Box, whether that's live or later on today or tomorrow or whenever, purple and gold for days, it should be in the link there as well in you guys' comment section. So there you go. But yeah, put that in the comments.
It's a really good channel. Let me just say, because like obviously, you know, when we started reaching out to each other and we started talking, I was listening to some of your videos and stuff, and I was like, oh my god, like this guy's actually like really good at this. Like I
appreciate
really
you,
cool. So it's a really great channel. It has the Jordan Hawthorne seal of approval, which means a lot, I think. But I'll very quickly do my final thoughts here. And I try to keep it football related, but I'm gonna go off the deep end just a little bit here. Big pro wrestling guy, this guy right here, and like The Rock is back in WWE, man. Like that's so much fun. So this has just been like an elite week for me in terms of like it's the Super Bowl. I'm doing a cross stream with one of the in my opinion one of the best Vikings channels around. Any week I get to talk to the marvelous Will Goodwin is a good week. It's been a great week to be Jordan Hawthorne. Thank you guys so much for all the subs and all the love that you guys have been showing. Absolutely. We really appreciate that. And Justin, we're definitely going to have to do this again. And so my final thoughts will just be, I'll go with this. If you don't like Taylor Swift's music, you should. It's good. I mean, it's objectively good music. And I personally enjoy it quite a lot. And maybe that I'm just saying that to get browning points from my sister-in-law, but who knows? But yeah, I've been Jordan and he's been Will. We've been the Load the Box crew. Justin, we will let you take us home.
Awesome. Well, I didn't do this earlier because I didn't want to do it. I only usually do it when it's just me on my channel. There's a little something I do at the start of my lives. And so I'm just going to do the abbreviated version. As much fun as we have talking on YouTube, whether it is about the Vikings, whether it's about the NFL, or just shooting the crap like we are a bunch of guys sitting at the bar. And that's the great thing about this invention called the internet and YouTube, that even though we are in different locations, it's as if we're sitting at the bar. But I always give shouts out to the people that made this possible, and that is the active and veteran members of our armed forces who fought for our freedom and continue to fight for our freedom, as well as their family members who have to give up time with their loved ones so that we can be free. I also shout out the brave men and women who serve as our police officers, firefighters, and EMS, who in times of tragedy are the ones running towards the danger while the rest of us are trying to get away from it. You potentially put your lives on the line every day when you go to work. So thank you so very kindly for keeping us safe. And finally, to the doctors, nurses, frontline workers, surgeons, and home health care providers who take care of us during our medical times of need. Your Super Bowl, and I say this every week, not just Super Bowl week, your Super Bowl is going home saying, today I saved a life. I shout out these men and women for their bravery, their courage, and because they at times can work very thankless jobs. So I just want to say thank you. And I say that typically at the beginning, but because this was a super show, I'm throwing it at the end there. I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight. Give my guys some subs. I want to see him up to 65. I want to see him up to 100, but we'll start with 65 and we'll go on to there. Got to give a quick real shout out here because we got one at the end. Shout out SKOL Mafia for the $9.99 super chat. Very much appreciate you. Thank you so much, my SKOL bro. I do appreciate it. I forgot to shout out Drop Shot Jake. I did see you, Jake, and I starred you, but we just having such a great conversation here tonight that I starred you and I forgot you. So I'm going to get you in there, Drop Shot Jake. Thanks so kindly for joining us here. Thanks everybody for joining us here this evening. Enjoy the Super Bowl festivities, whether you're a Taylor Swift fan or not, whether you're a fan of the Chiefs or the 49ers. Stay safe. If you're going somewhere and you're going to do some drinks in, make sure you have a safe ride home. Gentlemen, it was an absolute blast doing this. We will absolutely do this again. Thank you so kindly for joining me here this evening.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This was a blast.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Justin.
As always, if the elevator brings you down, go crazy, punch a higher floor. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again.